Good evening and salutations, my GH fans. You had 14 characters in this episode, and only one significant thing really wound up happening. I don't know when exactly GH lost their way. You know, in my members chat, we've been watching a lot of old classic soap operas, even like some old school GH and stuff like that too. And I just don't remember the body count being so high, and yet it feels like the needle of the story barely moved anything. Now we'll just get the whole Kai and Trina scenes out the way because they literally added the least to this episode. All they did was go in Drew's apartment to retrace their steps and see if they missed anything. Anything that, Drew can pick up on or whatever. They want to sit there and try to make sure that they, you know, covered their tracks. Which is like the dumbest thing that wound up happening in this episode because I'm like, you came back to the scene of the crime to try to clean it up, but you have forensics and CSI do an entire sweep of that place. So in reality, the only thing that you wound up doing was pretty much doing a recap of any audience member that missed that particular episode. That's what they were there for. They were just there for the recap. And of course, he just sits there and says, "Oh my God, my fingerprints on the bat, and if they find that, they'll piece it together, and then they'll realize that Porsha and Trina, Porsha and Curtis have something to hide." That's what happened with them. Now, Nina and Carly pretty much just kind of go back and forth, right? It starts off with Nina coming in saying, it's really good that Michael is being so reasonable. Of course, Carly points out, we wouldn't be in this mess if you just would have warmed up and just told your daughter the truth, and we wouldn't be in this place that we are in now. They go back and forth until Nathan breaks it up. Now, Nathan was at Anna's, he was at the police station with Anna when Dante was there, talking cop stuff and whatever. So first he comes there and he's like, "I just want to thank you, Anna, because, you broke the news to the family, and, if it had to come from anyone, it would come from you." And then he starts talking about his son. And I'm kind of just like, so where are we going, Nathan? Because, we only have an hour to do this, so maybe we should probably get to the point. The point was he wanted to go there and ask for his job back. And while Anna was like, that sounds like a great idea, the problem is, I don't know if that's likely. And I was thinking, why? And then she was like, because there's 7 years of your life that's missing that we don't have account for, and you don't have account for. So maybe we should probably start with that before you decided you want to start being a cop. Now, he wants to sit there and move the process along as fast as possible because he wants to provide for his son. Yes, the family has stepped up, Mac and Felicia and Nellie, and that's great. But like he says, Nellie is not his dad. I am. So he wants to provide for his son. Like, that's all good and great. You're a great cop. We just gotta, kind of get an idea of, the 7 years you've been just missing. And then he goes to the, now Kelly's, now Bobby's, and, kind of breaks up a fight. Chase is helping Brooklyn put away to China because, Tracy's been all pissy about it. Ronnie touched my China, blah, 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 blah. What they're talking about Willow, and Chase is feeling guilty because he practically felt like he put Willow in the crosshairs of this investigation by basically what they're saying, um, telling Anna the theory about Drew shooting um the judge before Willow had a chance of, getting access to her kids because, she seemed like she was more leaning on, maybe having Willow get some visitation rights. In all reality, he got Willow's he got Willow into the crosshairs not necessarily by doing that. He gave Willow motive when he decided to tell Willow about the conversation he had with the judge, practically getting her hopes up. Saying, listen, I just talked to that judge, and she seemed like she would look more open to giving you visitation rights. I mean, I can't say for sure, but the conversation went well, right? That's before she was found dead. So in all reality, you gave her the motive to actually do that. Because if you didn't say anything, then she wouldn't have motive to sit there and take out Drew because it's like, I was about to get my kids back and you effed it up. So that's what he's guilty about. And he's also guilty because, listen, when they broke up, he found Brooklyn. And, you know, she ended up with Drew. So he feels guilty about that. It's a weird thing to feel guilty about, but okay. Um, Now, Curtis tells Porsha, we should hold off on the getting divorced part because he got it on good authority. I don't remember from who. That Drew suspects Curtis or Porsha as the shooter. And of course, at some point, Porsha tells Curtis, most likely is going to be Willow. Since she was at Liz's place when they found the gun, they don't think Liz did it, but most likely Willow. Now, Anna Anna and Dante was talking about warrants and stuff, right? Okay, before we get to, just remember that part. Willow comes to see Drew, and Drew's like, I don't like the idea that you're playing Michael's game in a sense. He has all the cars, and you're visiting your kids on the supervised visits for an hour and everything. Willow's like, hey, listen, I got to do what I got to do. I got to see my kids. Drew's like, I really want you to move in with me, and you know, Willow's like, I don't want to rock the boat. Right now he's giving me visitations, therapist appointed, but I still get to see my kids. If I'm moving with you, he may decide to sit there and take that back. Drew's like, if he does that, we can use that in court. Drew's only sitting there thinking about what he wants. Willow's sitting there thinking about how it's going to mess up her situation with the kids. Ultimately, she lets Drew talk her into moving in, so it really doesn't matter. She goes to see the kids with Michael and everything, and then the cops pick her up. And then the cops also come chase. See, Sonny was talking to Dante, and he asked him, "Hey, listen, I gotta ask you. I know it's put you in a bad position, but are they about to arrest Michael?" Dante's like, "There's no warrants out for Michael, but you're not gonna like who they are going to arrest." Sonny makes a beeline to Carly, saying, "Listen, we got the jet ready. We got to sit there and go. We got to go right now." He turns around. He sees the cops. Now, Nina and Carly was basically pointing a finger at each other about who's going to get arrested. Cops come in. Nina starts bragging like, she's about to sit there and go down. She's about to get arrested. The cops stop by Nina and is like, yeah, we about to take you in. You're under arrest. I laughed my ass off because I was like, girl, should have held your tongue. You should have held your tongue. Now you looking like Boo Boo the Fool. This isn't the first time in the years you've been here, but this is it's another great shot. So thank you for making me laugh. Oh, and then Curtis and Porsha tells Trina that, listen, we're sorry we tried, but we're getting a divorce. So, that sucks. Oh, and then Drew is, Drew comes back, falls to Kai, and he's all bragging, talking about, oh, Willow's gonna sit there and agree to move in with me. Yeah, Willow's gonna be in jail, so she's not going to be. Now, the only thing that did suck is that she had to sit there and get arrested in front of her kids. That sucked. Like, hey, maybe, since the kids are there and they're present, and Willow does not seem like a physical threat, do you have to do that in front of her kids? You could have made 12 steps out and made a left and did the exact same thing. Um, so that's the only thing that sucks. Not done. No, I forgot about the scene with Michael. So Michael comes in, I guess, to see Diane, or he comes in for some reason. Oh, he came in, I think, because Sonny called him, right? And Sonny's like, all right, listen, I want to ask you one more time, did you shoot Drew? He's like, no. And he tells the events that wound up happening, and he tells it. Basically, Smith is saying that he found out when Drew got shot that he found out that Willow got back together with him and got back together with Drew. He was mad, angry, pissed off. He went to the bar, met a pretty lady, went back to the hotel, and that was it. But the way he told the story, there's a point where he hesitates, you know? Because, yeah, he did sit there and say, he met a pretty girl, they started talking, which was true, we saw that. And he hesitates, and he's like, oh, well, we went back to her place. And at that point, well, technically his name is Michael, but Sonny was like, okay, so you must be ready to get arrested, right? Because, listen, I don't believe that story. And if I don't believe that story, you know damn well the cops are not going to believe that story. And that alibi, that weak ass alibi with Jacinda, is she even going to be able to stand up to like the questioning and stuff like that? And this is when Michael's like, trust me, I got nothing to worry about. I didn't do it. And he says it as almost like he knows who did do it. Now he deflects, obviously, but it just made me wonder when he was just so sure, right? He was so sure. And there was a line that he said, I can't remember what the line was, but it was a line that he said. So when he went there, having playtime with his kids and her and everything, the cops come in, he has that look on his face. And it was almost like a look of like he knew that this was happening. I don't know. I'm just throwing out all sorts of guesses. I've heard wilder theories. Most of them I'm not going to sit there and repeat, but now I feel like that's about it. Like I said, 14 people and the needle really didn't move that much. Now I saw the previews for this week, so it is definitely going to get pretty interesting. This is amazing that you have to go through 14 people to actually start to get some stories unraveled. And I just wonder if that was the idea of why they have so many people in one episode to slow the story down. Because, I mean, like I said, Days of Our Lives have just as many cast members as GH. And yet, I could almost do a review on it without notes because they don't just throw a goddamn football team after you. Now, I feel like that's generally about it. I might have missed some stuff here or there, but that's the general gist of the episode. Now, we'll be back on Wednesday. We'll talk about this episode, tomorrow's episode of GH, and of course, Wednesday's episode, along with all the other soaps. We'll talk about all the other stuff. And I also did a review on Beyond the Gates. So if you are a fan of Beyond the Gates, definitely check that out because I'm going to be uploading that. Well, at the same time I upload this video. With that being said, I'm going to go. I'll see you in the next video.